Sorry about the interruption. That was a call I had to take. Okay, so we're back where we were. So basically I've set up my angles. I've corrected things from this front view, at least. This line wouldn't be here because that's an airline all the way up. It's also true that this part of the shoulder of the ring, for a simple traditional look, wouldn't be there either. So I'm going to leave this in here because it's useful for prongs. But that should give me everything I need from this view. Now I'm going to come over and look at this view. Okay. Now to bring this information, to bring the mirror tool over, I'm going to transform symmetry, grab it, pull it over here. And set that up. Now, you can pull guides just like you do in Painter, but they're from opposite directions. In Painter, if you pull a guide from the top, it'll be a vertical guide, and in Photoshop, you pull it from the top, it's horizontal. But you do have access to these guides as you do more drawings in here. We don't really need it for what we're doing, but it is interesting, for example, when you come down to here. This will be important. So, going to put that there. View. There should be a place where we can set the color of that guide. Nope. Nope. Okay. I don't particularly like that color, but we'll work with it. I have never had to change colors of the guide. I know there's a place to do it in here. There has to be. It's just not something I've ever needed in Photoshop. So, I do want to make changes here. It will be interesting to see how these changes correspond to this point. Because what I want to do, once again, is I want to change the angles. This angle is too severe. I want an angle that looks more like that. Okay? The question is, where does that end up? And the only place where that becomes relevant, sorry, I am having a very busy day today. Only place that becomes relevant is if it comes all the way down to here. And it doesn't. We can just project by eye that it ends up way down there. Okay? So what that tells me in my maquette when I get back into Rhino is that I can't just pull down and extrude to point because it'll give me the wrong thing. If I do an extrude to point using that angle, I'm going to get that, which I feel is too sharp. Although now that I see it, now I think my other one is too shallow. So I am going to taper it back a little bit. I'm not being too awfully careful because, once again, this is a maquette. This isn't my finished design. This is, I'm still doing maquette work. So that's the new angle. All right? Which means I have to, if I want it to be accurate, I have to bring this information into play. I don't care enough to do that, really. I will gesture it. This is going to come into here and something like that, and then this is going to come down more like this, and the top of this is going to come down more like that. I can see that by just carrying the information over. But that's just me being picky. For maquette purposes, I don't need that at all. For maquette purposes, that's enough. Now, I'm not going to do anything with these views for the angles, but now I want to talk or think about prongs. I'm going to do a new layer so that I can think about prongs for a minute. I'm going to probably want to prong this with a 4-prong setup, either single or double. I haven't decided yet. That's a design decision. But as an engineering construct, I'm going to want something there. So I'm going to transform my mirror. And I actually want dual axis now. And I'm going to want to set that up as accurately as I can. Like I said, it's a maquette. It doesn't matter all that much, but it doesn't take long to do it right. So, back to my brush tool. And I'm going to set up prongs. Would normally go somewhere like that on this ring. And that's going to be okay. It usually captures the corner facet, or where the biggest curvature on the cushion is. So that works. My other choice would be to do them here and then do a shared prong here. But that lengthens my design too much. I don't think I would like that. So I'm going to put them roughly here. And that's not a bad size. It's not a great size. It's just me eyeballing it. By the way, when you draw prongs for a maquette, you're actually better off drawing them as squares. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So I've got that, which means that the prongs for this are going to be independent. Because it's a corner, it would typically be a V-prong, but it could also be a round prong. Either one would work. I don't like V-prongs there, so I'm going to go with a prong that looks something like that. Now for the end, I could capture the end right here. But with a pear, with a half moon, that tends to turn it into like a triangle or a pear shape. So I'm actually going to catch it here. Yeah. Which also turns it into kind of a trapezoid. So it begins to be, actually not trapezoid, yeah, like a parallelogram. So I got to decide whether I want that or not. Another pronging option would be here, here. That preserves the shape of the stone, but it's a very busy prong layout. So I'm going to go back to here. Draw my little boxes. And that will give me the information I need to try and draw, gesture at least, these prongs down in my front view. I'm going to go back to a vertical symmetry. Pull it into position. Go back to paintbrush. And I'm going to start using some guides. For vertical guides, I got to pull from over here. I'm going to catch the outside of that prong and the inside of that prong. And I'm going to put the top of the prong somewhere in here. And I'm going to draw it following the angle that I have sketched in. tapering a little bit toward the bottom. And then I'm going to catch the corner. Like so. Now, if you want to draw smoothly with a stylus, the key isn't generally to zoom in, which is what we want to do. The key is usually to zoom out. Because when you're working with a stylus, you are limited to very small wrist movements, especially on the tablets that you guys are working with. On my pen monitor here, I can actually do full elbow movement if I want to. You know, I can zoom in here and I can set my pen down and I can do a full sweeping sort of gesture. That squeaking you hear is my hand on the glass because I'm not wearing my glove, which I should always do when I'm working on here. But when you're working with a tablet, you really want to zoom out to get a smoother line. So I have that, roughly. By the way, I know that this has to notch into this, like that. So does this. Something like that. All right, let's take a look at the okay, this comes up and captures the corner of this stone. I don't think I'm going to want that to go all the way down. I think that is going to stop at the under bezel for this design. The back side of that prong is actually hidden behind here. It's actually a little bit behind this. So it's the way I've sketched it there, it's something like that. These prongs are out here. This one will come down, following the curvature that I set out for the head. Once again, the taper. Once again, this fits into it. As does this. And I'll pick up that corner as well. The reason I draw them as squares and I catch the corners of them is just so that I understand them. I can understand how much of the prong is thickness versus what's facing front. If I'm going to make it a half round prong, this is very helpful to figure out what planes land where. It gives you a good visual reference for how thick this thing is that you've made. So this tells me some interesting things. It tells me that I have a corner here that shows, but it doesn't show up here. I can see how big my windows now. I have two very large windows under the side stones, which means I may want to find a way to bring those side stones down lower, especially because now Unless I'm going to do a soft shoulder, which is nice. I mean, that could be something that I would decide to do. That would be valid, but it still gives me kind of a hi-hat ring, which I'm not really fond of. So I'm going to play with my stone elevations. I'm going to play with a lot. Now I could come back over here and draw that out on the side. There's no point in doing it. It's a technically difficult thing to do, and I'm not willing to do it with this video. It would just confuse you. So, but that's where we're going to stop for now. Thanks for watching.